Hello students, welcome back to the online lecture of Environmental Studies, semester 1. We have started with the fourth module of semester 1 syllabus titled as Urbanization and Environment. This is the overview of the fourth module. The concept of urbanization, problems associated with migration in urban areas, air pollution and water pollution due to urbanization. These are the points we have discussed already. Problem of soil and biodiversity in urban areas. Problems associated with land use and land cover change pattern. Urban heat islands and smart cities in India. Before we actually start with today's lecture, let us have a look at module objectives. By the end of this unit, we will be able to understand the patterns of global urban growth. We will be able to understand the problems of excess urbanization. We will understand the concept of smart cities, and we will also be able to understand the patterns of urban population globally. In the last lecture, we have discussed the process of urbanization and historical background of urban growth over the period of time, including ancient cities, medieval cities, post-industrial revolution cities, and cities in 21st centuries. Then we have also discussed how migration has caused overcrowding in urban areas and the problems associated with migration to urban areas with suitable examples. We have also discussed the impact of urbanization on air quality and water quality in terms of air pollution and water pollution. We have discussed with some examples in India. Today, we have planned to discuss the problems in urban areas related to loss of soil and biodiversity. We are also looking at the process of urbanization in context with the changing land use and land cover pattern. Soil is one of the fundamental natural resources in a region, and therefore conservation and preservation of soil is important in order to achieve the sustainable development. However, soil loss and degradation of soil resources have been frequently observed in urban areas due to various human activities and increasing human interventions in the natural areas, resulting in loss of fundamental natural resources, including soil. One of the very common reasons behind degradation of soil is deforestation on a large scale. Removal of forest cover is found to be more common in the peripheral areas of urban settlements. As the urban growth or urban sprawl continue to increase in the peripheral zone, the forest cover is lost and the land is converted to urban landscape. Besides, the forest cover is also removed to cater to the needs of urban population, made before the firewood that is required in slum areas to cook food and heat water, or for furniture that is required for household and commercial purpose. And therefore, the rate of deforestation is found to be more in the peripheral zone of cities. Besides that, one of the very common observation found in the areas around the cities or the agricultural fields that surrounds the cities is that as cities grow laterally in different directions, the agricultural land get affected, and due to expansion of urban impact in the peripheral zone, slowly and steadily the agricultural land get converted into non-agricultural landscape, that is urban landscape. A very simple example can be given of various suburbs that are developed around Mumbai. We find that these suburbs were earlier agricultural lands of villagers, but when developers came there and when high-rise buildings, residential towns started developing, the farmers have sold their agricultural fields to the developers, and then the entire landscape is converted to urban landscape. And the first impact that occurs is on the soil loss in the agricultural field, because urban landscape include concrete roads, cemented roads, and also high-rise buildings which cover the entire land with concrete that doesn't allow this rainwater to penetrate below it, and then the entire soil cover get destroyed. Another important area where qualitative soil loss is observed is dumping yards. Dumping yard are the areas where garbage or solid waste generated in the cities are dumped, and it occupies huge amount of land. In Mumbai, Devnar dumping yard, Kanjurmarg dumping yard, Gorai dumping yard, and Mulund dumping yard are the examples of dumping yard which uses huge amount of land, occupies huge amount of land for heaps of garbage. And as a matter of fact, that Mumbai alone produces around 6,500 tons of garbage every day, and that is a major reason behind degradation of land resources in the urban areas. Unfortunately, least effort is made to recycle and reprocessing of the garbage in order to make best use of it and reduce the stress on dumping yard. And therefore, the heaps of garbage that is being generated every now and then not only results in occupants of land for dumping yard, but also the soils are degraded qualitatively because of leaching of chemical effluents from the garbage into the soil, and that soil become unfit for cultivation in later period. This is a very common observation that the open soils are hardly observed in the urban areas because the entire urban landscape is covered with concrete material, and therefore loose open soil is hardly seen anywhere in the cities. And due to absence of these soil cover, open soil cover, the microorganisms remain absent in such areas. And as we have discussed in the first module of this semester syllabus, that microorganisms in the soil play significant role in nutrient cycling. Unfortunately, they found to be absent in the surface or in the lands of urban areas due to concrete jungles that is being developed. Another important impact of urban sprawl and urban growth or development of land for urban land use is soil compaction. Frequent use of tractors, frequent use of road graders, bulldozers, the soil get compacted, and the compacted soil reduces its water holding capacity, and further its fertility or productivity also reduces. And therefore soil compaction, although it is found to be very least focused impact on soil areas or soil resources, but it play important role in degradation of soil. Expansion of deserts in the fringe zone of desert areas due to continuously blowing winds, particularly in Punjab and Haryana, also leads to the desertification process. Deforestation or removal of forest cover in India, for example, is responsible for loss of soil cover on a very larger scale. And Madhya Pradesh, Assam, Karnataka, Odisha and Maharashtra, these are the 5 states which have been responsible for maximum loss of forest cover, and further soil resources are also being degraded on a larger scale. The loss of forest cover is as high as 670 square kilometers in such areas, which is as equal to the total area of Mumbai. As I told you that urban expansion is responsible for loss of soil cover in the urban areas. If we look at this picture, we'll find that hardly we find any open land with open soil in this particular picture, because the entire landscape is covered with urban land use, and that results in the loss of soil on a larger scale. I was talking about soil compaction. This is the symbolic example of how soil compaction takes place. The pore spaces in the soil get reduces due to such kind of compaction, and then the soil fertility also reduces to large extent, and it frequently occur in the areas where the urban impact started growing in the peripheral zone of the urban centers. Expansion of urban lands in the agricultural zone leads to encroachment of urban land use into the agricultural land. And once the agricultural field is converted into urban land use, the soil is lost forever. It cannot be reproduced to agricultural production, or reused to agricultural production rather. So this is also a symbolic example. And dumping yards like this are the areas where soil resources are getting depleted on a larger scale, and they become unfit for any agricultural production in future. If we talk about forest loss and its impact on soil loss in Mumbai, we find that the Sanjeev Gandhi National Park, the RA colony together have experienced loss of forest cover in such areas, which is the rate of which is as high as 7 to 8% per year. We find that the vegetation cover in Mumbai in the year 1990 was close to 15%, which has reduced to 13.8% in 2000 and 11.3% in 2015, which says that not only forest is being reduced, but also the soil cover that is being affected badly. Another important areas where urban growth has its impact is on loss of biodiversity. The first impact is said to be introduction of non-native species and animals in the urban areas, which cause harm to native species. Like for example, brown rat, pigeon and rodents are the non-native species of animals which enter or which grow in the cities very fastly, and that has resulted into loss of biodiversity or ecological balance in the urban areas. Due to deforestation, loss of soil and various other human interventions in the urban areas leads to fragmentation of natural habitat for wildlife, birds and animals. For example, extinction of sparrow. Now, sparrow used to be considered as a very common bird species, not only in urban areas but also in rural areas. But due to increasing level of air pollution, due to increasing noise pollution, and also various human activities, a very common bird like sparrow is also disappearing very fastly. Surprisingly, during the first lockdown, during the COVID-19 period, we could find that the sparrows came back and we could see large number of sparrows around. But when industries started reopening, immediately they disappeared. The urban influence in the surrounding natural areas or neighboring forest areas also creates several problems. Like, for example, the forest areas of Sanjay Gandhi National Park in Powai. We had a news early of a few years back that leopard enter into the IIT lab of Powai. Why is this so? Why they enter to such human habitation areas? Because the forest land that is being cut down and their natural habitat is being destroyed, and that is the reason why these wild animals are forced to enter to the areas of human habitation. Increasing noise pollution affects the birds, and many birds die because of high tension electric wires and also radiation. Birds and animals also get affected due to behavioral changes. Like, for example, feeding pigeon leads to several problems in urban areas. So these are the pictures of sparrows which are disappearing very fastly. Brown rat. This is the picture of leopard which was entered into the IIT Powai campus. And this is how high tension wire leads to the death of many bird species in urban areas. So this is how the biodiversity in the urban areas get affected adversely due to increasing influence of urban landscape and various human activities. Let us now have a look at the impact of urbanization on the land use pattern. The land use change is found to be more prominent in the peripheral zone or surrounding zone of the city on a very larger scale, where warehouses, dumping yards, parking lots, airports are found to be more frequently in such areas, and such areas often had adverse environmental impact in such peripheral zones, which are also known as rural urban fringe. And continuous land use change is observed in the rural urban fringe area, where the urban influence go on increasing in such regions. The growth of urban centers or urban sprawl results in gradual change, sometimes rapid change in land use and land cover pattern, and many times the uncontrolled and unplanned growth of urban centers in such peripheral areas. Initially, we find mixed land use pattern in such areas because the agricultural lands are also there, agricultural production is also taken in the peripheral zone. But slowly and steadily, the urban influence increases, and then the entire rural landscape is converted into urban landscape. The uncontrolled growth of cities in surrounding areas affects the economic activities like farming, animal rearing, that is domestication of animals, dairy farming, and such domestic activities or primary economic activities continue to decline due to increasing impact of urban land use, as I have mentioned a couple of minutes back. Now here we can see that urban growth in most of the urban centers in the world are found to be of such kind where there is no proper planning of urban areas. We find large number of slums are growing in uncontrolled manner. There are high-rise buildings immediately close to the slum areas, and this kind of unplanned growth of the cities leads to various socio-economic problems, sometimes natural and man-made disasters too, and that sometimes become difficult to handle the situation. Like we find that if there is a fire in slum areas, it is very difficult for fire extinguisher to reach to such areas because of the unplanned growth of the urban settlements, slums and chawls and buildings as well. Now, if we talk about the growth of cities in peripheral areas, the land use pattern is found to be different in the peripheral areas than that of the core areas of cities. Large amount of population travel to the core city from peripheral areas to the main city for working during the daytime and back to the residential areas or suburbs in the night time. And this type of population is called as floating population. Like uh, lakhs of people travel daily from suburbs to Mumbai and again from Mumbai to suburbs every day, and this is the floating population uh, increasing during daytime in the core city area puts stress on the infrastructure of the city. And due to increase the influence of urban land use in the coastal areas particularly leads to loss of vegetation cover in the creeks, forest, grassland, ponds, mangrove loss and their productivity, which has been found very frequently in mega urban cities. The cities of post-globalization era has changed the face of the traditional cities. Like earlier, the traditional cities used to be the industrial towns, which has then converted into commercial establishment. Then it went on changing to trading centers and then administrative headquarters. So the urban centers are also changing its importance from time to time, particularly in the post-globalization period. The situation has went on changing continuously. And in the old urban areas or well-developed urban areas particularly, the old buildings and old chawls are destroyed, demolished, and then new buildings are constructed in the same place. This process is very commonly known as urban renewal, which has also some environmental and socio-economic impact on the urban areas. Now, this is how the urban renewal takes place in the urban areas which are developed in past few years. This is the floating population I was talking about. Thousands of people travel every day from Mumbai city to the suburban areas and from suburban areas to Mumbai city for their daily livelihood, and that results in the increasing stress on the available infrastructure. So that's how we have discussed the impact of urbanization or urban growth on fundamental natural resources like soil, forest, biodiversity, and also the impact of urban growth on the changing land use, particularly in the peripheral zone of the cities and also in the core cities in form of urban renewal. So we have discussed till now. We will be discussing couple of new concepts including urban heat islands and smart cities in the next lecture. Till then, thank you very much, students.